The home of the common Joe and the common Sally in the know, even more so than all those media talking heads. Woo! Here we come again, riding on in. Today we're riding in with our college football Bibles in hands, the Athlon's magazines and Lindy's magazines that came out, as I said in my last live stream, that was cut short by technical difficulties, and we're going to address a few topics today in the Athlon's magazine. I'm going to get y'all's opinions on that. Heisman Watch, best games of 2023, and conference rankings. But before we get to all that, I got a few people to give a shout out to and to give some recognition to. We are now up to 19 members of the Outlaw Posse. Just one member away from being in that top 20. And the new Posse members that have saddled up and decided to ride on in with us each and every week are Dakota Green and Stink Ass Cat. Also, we had a few good donations come in as well. Is Alpha Dragon Gaming FTW slipped us a good old $20 bill, and old 56 timer did as well. Appreciate the hell out of that. Appreciate y'all supporting the program. And as I've said before, we're going to think of some good perks once we get to that top 20 for the Outlaw Posse, which is $2.99 a month, 75 cents a week. It's a little join button next to the subscribe button. Hit that join button and get your little badge, just like Dakota Green and Stink Ass Cat did today. They got deputized. Now they got their Outlaw Posse badge each and every time they make a comment. So now let's get right to it. Seems like Athlon's has some few interesting topics in here that I'd like to get you guys and gals thoughts on. First of all, I'd like to start with the Heisman Watch. Of course, we all know the Captain Obvious number one for them is Caleb Williams. Even though there hasn't been a repeat Heisman Trophy since Archie Griffin won it way back with Ohio State in the 1970s. And there's been players that's probably deserved to be repeat Heisman winners since then. But I think there's just like an unwritten rule with the Heisman voters that they're just not going to do that anymore. And it would just have to be something epically crazy as far as stats go and wins and that kind of deal for Caleb Williams to repeat as a Heisman Trophy winner, just like it was for Bryce Young last year. They have number 2 on their list is Marvin Harrison Jr., the wide receiver out of Ohio State. It's a good thing to see that they do have some positions in here outside of quarterback, which really aggravates me. It's mostly a quarterback and sometimes running back award, although, as you know, Devontae from Alabama won the Heisman Trophy as a wide receiver, but it had been a while since that happened. Number 3, they got quarterback Drake May of North Carolina. Then it's Jordan Travis, also a quarterback from Florida State. Michael Penix Jr., quarterback of Washington. Bo Nix, quarterback of Oregon. Quarterback Sam Hartman of Notre Dame. Running back, finally, running back Blake Corum of Michigan. Then it's back to the quarterbacks. Cade Klubnik of Clemson. And quarterback Kyle McCord of Ohio State. That one, last one, I don't understand why they would put that in there as one of their tops, because he hasn't proven anything. I know he plays for the Ohio State Buckeyes, but come on now. Other names to know, in their opinion, are, once again, a quarterback, Drew Allar of Penn State, quarterback Dylan Gabriel, that'll make a lot of the Sooners that watch my channel happy, Joe Milton III of Tennessee, a quarterback Ty Simpson of Alabama, and I'm an Alabama fan, but that's ridiculous, because he was third string quarterback last year. He hasn't even, they don't even know if he's going to start. Running back Braylon Allen of Wisconsin, running back Travion Henderson of Ohio State, running back Nicholas Singleton of Penn State, and tight end Brock Bowers of Georgia. That last one would be my favorite. I mean, that'd be unique to see a tight end win it. And I think Brock Bowers is probably one of the best tight ends I've ever watched play the game of college football. So I don't know. What do you guys and gals think about all that? Y'all think are there any defensive players? I haven't got none that's come to mind. I should have probably wrote down a few before I got on here. But they need to put some defensive players up in there. This is the issue that I have with the Heisman Trophy voting. It's about quarterbacks and running backs at least probably 95% of the time. They'll just occasionally push a defensive player up there just to patronize, but they never will pull the trigger and let an actual defensive player win the Heisman Trophy. Now, I know Charles Woodson won it back in the day when they should have actually give it to a quarterback that year, and Peyton Manning. I hate Tennessee, and I dislike Peyton Manning with a passion, but we all know Peyton Manning was a better Heisman Trophy candidate than Charles Woodson. But Charles Woodson wasn't just a defensive back. He played both sides of the ball, and he done kick returns. They just need to make it about the best player overall. I mean, that's what they advertise. And if they advertise it as being the best offensive player of the year, that's fine. But to say that it's for the best college football player at every position is just disingenuous, and it's basically insulting our intelligence, Heisman trust. Because trust. You know, Heisman trust is Heisman distrust, because y'all going to give it to a quarterback or running back. Now, yeah, like I said, y'all sneak a wide receiver in there every once in a while, or somebody that plays both ways, like Charles Woodson. But give it to a defensive player that's just great on the defensive side of the ball. You do it for offensive players. You don't see quarterbacks playing both ways when they win it. You know, y'all running backs either. So the other positions shouldn't have to do something astronomically different in order to get consideration to win the Heisman Trophy. But you guys and gals, give me your opinion on that. Now, moving on to the next topic on here, they got best games here in the College Football Bible. Let's turn to page, if you got your College Football Bible with you, turn to page 24. Their best games are, number 1, Ohio State at Michigan. Surprise, surprise. Will Ohio State get beat by Michigan 3 years in a row for the first time in a very long time? You know, it's hard for me to remember last time they won back-to-back games, which happened last year. Y'all drop in the comments section. I haven't had a chance to Google that. But when was the last time Michigan beat Ohio State 3 years in a row? Number 2, LSU at Alabama. Again, no surprise here. LSU beat Alabama last year, so this will be sort of an interesting revenge-type game for Alabama and Nick Saban. Number 3, Florida State versus LSU. That's in Orlando. Once again, neutral site game from last year. Wonder if they're going to make this an ongoing thing between Florida State and LSU. They're going to have their own little neutral site rivalry game from now on? I don't know. Number 4, Ohio State at Notre Dame. It's a return game from last year. Notre Dame actually gave Ohio State a pretty good scare. A lot of low-scoring game. I think we ended up, 21-10? I don't have that in front of me either, but anyway. This may be a little more difficult for Ohio State. You know, I would have thought that maybe coming into this game, Notre Dame would probably lose it as well. It'd be 2 years in a row for Ohio State in this series. But the fact that Notre Dame got Sam Hartman, which I think, and I'm not a big fan of the transfer portal, but if you don't get a transfer portal player, make sure it's a player that's going to produce right away. And I think Sam Hartman will. I think Sam Hartman was probably the best get out of the transfer portal. And because Notre Dame's quarterback situation was really sketchy, the fact that they was able to get Sam Hartman really changes the dynamics of this game going forward. And it's on September 23rd, so it's really early. I think Notre Dame might be able to pull the upset here. Texas at Alabama is their number 5 game. Texas, as you know, last year scared the hell out of Alabama. They had to kick a last-second field goal to win that game. Alabama's all-time 2-7 in this series. They never beat Texas up until the national title game back in 2009. They were like 0-7-1 with one tie, but now they've won the last 2. Texas is coming in with a pretty good quarterback that's coming around. I think Quinn Ewers is going to be a pretty good quarterback for Texas. This could set the stage for Texas finally being back if they can pull this upset in Tuscaloosa with Alabama still undecided at quarterback at this point, because they would have played Middle Tennessee, and they're probably not going to really be sure about who they want their quarterback to be going forward. This Texas game will probably determine that for Alabama. Don't be surprised if Texas pulls the upset in that game. Number 6, Washington at USC. Last year, USC didn't play Washington. So, this is going to be an upgrade on the schedule for USC. Their schedule's going to be a little bit tougher this year. So, let's see if they can, pull another double-digit win season with Caleb Williams coming back as defending Heisman Trophy candidate. I think they might have a little more of an issue here. Now, if this game had been in Seattle, I'd be pretty sure that this was going to be an upset. But because it is in Los Angeles, which I guess I don't really matter either, because half the time their fans don't show up. But that's what skittle shitters do. I mean, if you're not winning or entertaining the hell out of them, man, they got that sort of like attention deficit disorder or some shit. They'll be over there on the beach watching the transgender volleyball tournaments in Santa Barbara somewhere. But number 7, Michigan at Penn State. That should be a pretty good game since it's at Penn State. Penn State seems like they're trying to come around. They seem like they're trying. They got like a glass ceiling there for Penn State. They can't seem to break into that top 2. But that's been all the Big Ten teams for near 100 years, where Michigan and Ohio State, for the most part, have dominated. You get a Wisconsin and Iowa and teams like that in there ever so often. But that'd be a great game for Penn State. It's November 11th. They can maybe make themselves known as being, instead of just the Big 2, move to the Big 3 if Penn State can pull one of these upsets this year. I don't know if Penn State plays Ohio State. They may, it may not, I don't know. Number 8, Florida State at Clemson. That should be a pretty good game as well. Florida State is like the dark horse national championship this year, choice of a lot of people. They like to have that little darling dark horse candidate. Florida State seems to be the choice of a lot of people as a dark horse national championship contender. But because this game's in Clemson, and Clemson seems to have upgraded their offensive philosophy with Lincoln Riley's little brother, Garrett, I think Garrett might actually end up being a better coach than Lincoln Riley one day. But I think that, people are thinking Florida State's coming back this year, then they're going to make themselves known as a national contender. But I think they might need to hold that horse a little bit. Like I said, Clemson's upgraded their offensive philosophy, and I think Clemson will probably win this game. Georgia at Tennessee. Now, last year there was a lot of hype going into that game. Tennessee had beat Alabama. Tennessee was back, and then boom, Georgia pretty much beat the shit out of them. They didn't run the score up. It should have been a lot worse. Well, they ended up like 27-6 or something. But it should have been a lot worse than that. We know that because South Carolina proved it, I think, a few weeks later when they put 63 on Tennessee. I don't think that game's going to be as good as people think. Of course, it could be, because I don't think Georgia's going to be as good as people think. They've got to replace quarterback too, but everybody thinks it's just going to be status quo. When you go into a new quarterback, regardless of how many stars they got, there's a transitional period there usually. And Georgia may see that this year because nobody's ever three-peated before, so we'll see. And their 10th game is Oregon at Washington. That's always been a big rivalry between those two. And these two teams could also be in the Big Ten in the near future. So the Big Ten may be keeping an eye on that game to see what they're looking at as far as rivalries go. They want to pick up that rivalry and push, the ratings up for their conference and whatnot. I think it'd be a great thing for the Big Ten to pick up Oregon and Washington. Oregon is also on USC's schedule, by the way. I don't know why they didn't put that in the top 10. In honorable mentions, though, you have USC at Notre Dame, Tennessee at Alabama, USC at Oregon. There it is. USC's having to go to Oregon. So I think that might be another game that might be a loss on USC's record, whereas that game wasn't on their schedule last year. A lot of people seem to forget that. A lot of the people out there, that's got their little man crush on Lincoln Riley and stuff. Not mentioning names, but Colin Coward. Notre Dame at Clemson. That'll be a good one. Texas at TCU. I don't know. That might be a good one. I think TCU is going to fall back a lot. Alabama at Texas A&M. That's always a pretty interesting game. Utah at USC. Utah going for 3 in a row. Well, they already beat them 3 times in a row. They beat them 2 times last year, and then the season before that they beat them. So they'll be going for the fabulous 4 in a row over USC. Oregon State at Oregon. Oregon State's came on. They had a double-digit win season last year, so this rivalry has become somewhat interesting. But this is late in the season, so we'll see. Oklahoma State and Oklahoma. Is this the bedlam for the last time they put November the 4th? I don't know why they put that on there. Oklahoma's a program. I respect them. Oklahoma State's been decent the last 10, 20 years. But overall, this ain't really a rivalry. I know that pisses a lot of people off when I say that, man. But when you're up 91-19 on somebody, to me, it's just a cherry case. Colorado at TCU. Now, I really have an issue with that. And y'all know I have an issue with that. Especially with con-time Deion Sanders. Because they were 1-11 last year. How you automatically going to put their game as one of the biggest games of the year when you don't even know how good they're going to be? You don't know how good Deion Sanders is going to be as a head coach. The jury's still out, man. What if you go into this game, Colorado playing at TCU, and it's a blowout? You look pretty stupid putting this in your magazine. And the last thing I'm going to touch on here before I get off here is conference rankings. They have, surprise, surprise, no surprise, Captain Obvious, number 1, SEC. That's another problem I have with these magazines. And y'all know the top 25 the other day. They always go by what happened last year specifically. And I understand that because that's usually the way it goes. But there's going to be a team that's going to sneak up there eventually. And it'd be nice if they would go out on the limb a little bit and give us a surprise nugget or two, you know? But number 1 was at the SEC. It says for the 4th season in a row, the SEC produced a national champion. Georgia rolled past TCU. Yada, yada, yada. See, that's another thing. People keep trying to talk about, like Colin Cowherd, talking about the SEC and how they're top heavy and all that crap when they're not. Georgia's won the last 2. So what are we going to say now? They're top heavy with Georgia? When Alabama's won 6 this century? Georgia's now won 2. LSU's won 3. Florida's won 2. Auburn's won 1. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. We've had 5 different teams this century win national championship. No other conference can say that. They're not even close. 2 by the ACC. 2 different teams. 2 championships. And in the Big Ten, they've got 2 national championships by 1 team. Okay? If you go back to the BCS era, that started in 1998, BCC's got 6 because Tennessee won the first BCS national championship game in 1998. Number 2, the Big Ten. Captain Obvious once again. Here I have a problem with this. Number 3, the Pac-12. I don't think the Pac-12 is the 3rd best conference, but I could be wrong because, like I said, Oregon State has picked up their game a little bit. Washington, Oregon seem to be coming on. USC, UCLA, those teams seem to be picking it up a little bit. Colorado, with the advent of con-time Deion Sanders, everybody thinks they're picking it up a little bit. That's probably what this has a lot to do with. They ain't going to be ranked 3rd much longer because they ain't going to be a conference anymore. Number 4, the Big 12. I would have probably flip-flopped those 2. I would probably put the Big 12 number 3, in my opinion. Number 5 is the ACC. Probably about right. I would probably argue that maybe the ACC is even better than the Pac-12. I might have put the Pac-12 as number 5. And some of these non-Power 5 conferences as well, like the Sun Belt, as you know, it says here, the Sun Belt added James Madison, Southern Miss, and Old Dominion and beefed up the conference. As you know, James Madison couldn't go to a bowl last year. James Madison's always been a real good team, even on the division FCS level. They went 8-3 last year in an inaugural season in Division I football, but they were ineligible to win the conference or go to a bowl game. So that'd be interesting this year with James Madison. The AAC has departures of Cincinnati, UCF, Houston, but they added Charlotte, Florida Atlantic, North Texas, Rice, UAB, and UTSA. Now, to me, the fact that they added UTSA is a big coup for the AAC. And the Big 12, in my opinion, should you really think about adding UTSA. They got a lot of supportive people down there in San Antonio. It's a big market, and y'all lost the Austin market with Texas, and you lost Texas A&M a while back. So y'all have lost the 2 biggest brand names in Texas. UTSA has a huge backing. They have a huge market in San Antonio, one of the fastest growing cities in America. UTSA would be a wise look for the Big 12. Y'all tell Brett Yormark that. At number 8, they had the Mountain West. Number 9, the MAC. And number 10, the USA. Interchangeable. But like I said, some interesting reading, great reading in this book. Check it out, Athlon's magazines. They're on the stands. I've got mine at Barnes & Nobles. They're probably at other places like Winn-Dixie in your grocery store magazine section. Check it out. And if you don't mind, there's a little heart down here, a little heart thanks button at the bottom. If you want to just do a one-time donations program and help us out, you can do that. Also, as I said earlier in the podcast, you can join the Outlaw Posse for just $2.99 a month, 75 cents a week, and get your little badge, get deputized, give you that big shout out, and then we'll give you those perks when we get to that top 20, only one member away. And also, if you want to cut the middleman out and make sure all the money goes to the program, I got a Cash App link in the description of this video. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. And as always, KMCA to all the other teams. Class is now officially dismissed.